So Joe Biden is hosting a family town hall tonight with his wife, Dr. Jill Biden. But one question I'm almost certain won't be asked surrounds Tara Reade and her allegations against Joe Biden. And that's because the Biden campaign is essentially ignoring these allegations, and so is the wider mainstream media. I'm not necessarily saying that you are obligated to believe Tara Reade. I certainly do, but it is shocking to me, absolutely shocking to me, that it's basically been a week since this story went mega viral on social media, and yet it's been almost entirely ignored by major sources. If you go on CNN's website, or if you go on MSNBC's website, and you search the name Tara Reade, and it's not really a commonly spelled name, it brings up 0 hits. It brings up nothing. Not even a piece to say that the issue is controversial. Not even a piece to defend Joe Biden. Not a piece to attack Joe Biden. Not a piece even outlining the basic facts of the accusations, allowing the reader to make the decision that she or he wants. None of that. It is absolute radio silence. And I've talked about this issue before. I talked about it when it broke. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but as I noted back then, on this channel, for at least as long as the mainstream media, or most of the mainstream media, is utterly ignoring this story, there is a special responsibility levied upon independent media, on podcasts, on YouTube, and other sources, to give this story coverage. I believe Tara Reade, and what I also believe is that the mainstream media is ignoring this story because they want to defend Joe Biden. Either there are pro-Biden sources like MSNBC, or there are sources that are anti-Bernie Sanders that don't care if a Republican or Democrat wins as long as the Democrat is not Bernie Sanders, and so will not bring up anything majorly critical of Joe Biden until at least he locks up the nomination. Then these stories can emerge. And you can certainly bet a ton of money from my perspective that once this primary is over, if Joe Biden does indeed wrap this up, goes to the convention with a majority of delegates and defeats Bernie Sanders, that this story will become national news after that has been clinched. Because at that point, the media sources are no longer fearing Bernie Sanders, and they will start to cover this story. But again, there is no excuse. I understand that there's a worldwide crisis happening right now, and that should probably be the number one story. But with 24-hour news networks, and with the fact that website news publishing isn't limited by the number of pages you have, you think you could have at least a couple stories here and there about Tara Reade, what she said, and the lack of response from the Biden campaign. I know there was a brief response, but we've heard nothing from Biden or from key Biden figures, right? There could be stories about this, but there isn't. The real story that we've gotten here is the silence. That's the story. Because I believe Tara Reade. But if you look at the mainstream media and you look at people like Alyssa Milano, you see that all of these folks, Alyssa Milano, Jill Filipovich, Simone Sanders, who at various points over the last few years have dedicated big parts of their public messaging to the hashtag Time's Up and Me Too movement, are now utterly silent about those realities because the person being accused is a person they support, or Joe Biden is running against somebody that they oppose in Bernie Sanders, and therefore no one gives a damn about Tara Reade or the other 7 women that Joe Biden has been accused by. Here's the deal. People like Alyssa Milano did great things when they brought up the reality of women and how they deal with powerful men. How women of various backgrounds, especially when you're poor and racialized, but when you're dealing with powerful men, even other powerful women find themselves in difficult positions. And how movements like Time's Up and Me Too did really good work in exposing all the ways in which powerful men get away with things that basically put them above the law and above human decency. But when it comes to Joe Biden, one of the world's most powerful men, former vice president, longtime senator, again, world levels of power, There's no one willing from the Me Too movement, from the Time's Up movement, to hold this rich, powerful, white, politician man to account for his actions. No one's willing to do it. And you gotta think the only reason is because he has a little D on his shirt, he wears a blue tie, and at this moment, everyone on the red team is the enemy, and so Joe Biden can do no wrong. And I'm not speaking as a Republican. I've never been a Republican. I am far to the left of the Democratic Party. I am a Bernie Sanders supporter through and through. So none of that is to say that the Democratic Party is somehow worse than the Republicans. But it is to say that all of these people who rightfully called out Brett Kavanaugh are now exhibiting radio silence. And you see these old pictures of Alyssa Milano crying amongst other champions of women's justice when the Brett Kavanaugh story was at its peak, and now are silent. And when they are speaking, it's wall-to-wall anti-Bernie Sanders propaganda. Because at this moment, the story is anything but the fact that Joe Biden did awful things to Tara Reade. The story is Joe Rogan. The story is Bernie Sanders and why he's not dropping out. But it is not about Tara Reade. It can't be about Tara Reade. This story has to not exist. I have not really ever seen anything like this. I really haven't. These accusations are too big to ignore, even if you ultimately don't believe them. I do believe Tara Reade, but you might not. That's the reality. Not everyone's going to be 100% on an issue like this. No one is. But I think we should all agree that whether you believe it or not, it is a travesty that Me Too movement people are ignoring this story, that MSNBC is ignoring this story, that CNN is ignoring this story, and it really does all seem to be put in place to stop any potential momentum for Bernie Sanders. And I'm not trying to make this all about Bernie, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that in this moment, you have credible allegations against someone that we really should, at the very least, be heavily investigating, and the media should be invested in covering. And that the only rational explanation I can think of, especially for sources that are not, in the paint with Joe Biden, is that they want to stop any potential momentum for Bernie. That Bernie Sanders' odds of winning are very small right now, but those odds still exist. And these allegations being massively publicized against Joe Biden would, give Bernie a less slim chance of winning. So, as long as this story is relevant, which it will be for as long as Joe Biden is alive, and as long as this story remains systematically undercovered, we are going to be talking about it on this channel. I know that you guys, my loyal viewers, expect nothing less, and I'll give you nothing less.